Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus pilot, and in today's video let's talk about why the startup sequence on the A320neo takes so much longer than on the conventional Airbuses. Now, do note that this not only applies to the A320neo, but to quite a lot of newer aircraft types. So let's go ahead and start engine number 2. What we are going to notice is this is the first flight of the day. You can see that by the EGT being pretty low down there. And for this reason the engine start is going to go rather quick. However, if the engine had run before, and if we were doing a turnaround, the engine start could take anywhere between 2 to 4 minutes longer than it normally would. Now you are going to notice this by the N2 value staying steady anywhere about 25 to 28%-ish. Before fuel is then introduced at a later point. But why is that happening in first place? Well, to understand, we need to have a look at the engines from the outside. What you will notice with not only the A320neo's engine, but also other aircraft, like for example the 747's GEnx engines, or the IAE V2500 engines for the A320 family. Likewise, you also have this on the 787 and the 737 MAX, although they are using similar versions of an engine than the aforementioned aircraft. Now, the reason this takes so long is as follows. We have those huge engines over here. Immediately, when looking at those newer engine types, we can notice that the engines are much larger than the previous generation of engines. And this obviously is done in order to increase the bypass ratio on the engines and thereby increase engine efficiency. Now, this has also been made possible by the use of different manufacturing techniques. For instance, if we just head over to the engine number 1 on our A320 over here, you can see how the engine blades are now no longer straight like they used to be on early generation jet engines, but they're actually formed in a way that the actual rotation speed of the leading edges doesn't exceed a certain threshold where drag would increase exponentially due to Mach effects. Now, due to all these technological advancements, the newer generation of engines have become much larger than the previous generation of engines used to be, and this comes with a couple of problems. Now, the first problem that we are talking about over here is thermal issues. So we are now standing in front of that engine and watching it start to rotate. But imagine what has happened previously when the engine has been shut down. Hot air rises upwards, and therefore the upper part of the engine would become hotter than the lower part of the engine. And this is something called bout rotor motoring. Now, aircraft are going to show you that in different manners. So let's return to the cockpit over here. For example, in Airbus aircraft, the N2 rotation might simply stop until at a certain point fuel is then introduced. Now, Airbus can make their life simple here because they are running a fully automated startup process anyway. However, on the 737 MAX, for example, things are a little bit different. Now, we are using the same engines here on the A320neo with the LEAP-1A engines and the 737 MAX with the LEAP-1B engines, which literally are just slightly different versions of the same engine for two different aircraft types. And in the MAX, for example, the airplane would actually stop at about 25% N2, motor it for a while, and while it's doing that, it would indicate BRM on the N2 gauge, indicating to the pilot that it's not yet time to introduce fuel into the engine. Now, naturally speaking, on the Airbus aircraft that is not really necessary since fuel is being introduced automatically anyway. However, what is rather important to notice there is that with Airbus aircraft you have a bit less of an indication of why it is taking so long. Now, when you are starting your engine after the engine has been shut down for a little while, due to that difference in temperatures inside the engines, the upper part of the engine becomes hotter, and therefore the engine is being rotated on a predetermined schedule in order to distribute the effects of the heat throughout the entire engine. The time that it takes is actually going to vary, and depending on the engine that you are running, it may take a little bit longer or a little bit less long in order to motor the engine. To give you an example, the Rolls-Royce Trent engines on the Airbus A330 are always going to motor the engine until the EGT has dropped below 100 degrees centigrade before introducing fuel. Now, when you're doing a short turnaround in a hot environment, that can take a little while. Now, in general, the startup times of your aircraft have therefore increased quite rapidly. On the 737 MAX and the A320neo, for example, it can easily take 2 to 4 extra minutes to start the engines compared to earlier versions. Obviously, this is reducing fuel efficiency because it means that the other engine, the one that has been started already, is going to run in idle for a little while until the other engine is started. Now, Airbus has recently come up with a fix for that, even though that is not a very widespread fix just yet, but I'm fairly sure it is going to become just that very quickly. Newer versions of the A320neo are actually able to motor both engines at the same time, even though they can only introduce fuel and complete the startup process for a single engine still. Now, we'll see when that is going to be introduced into the 737 MAX. Hopefully it is going to come soon in order to reduce the exceptionally long startup times that you encounter on those airplane types. I do hope that this sheds a little bit of light into what is going on with the engine starts on those aircraft, and I do hope that you now understand why it does take those engines to start a little bit longer. This is especially something that you are going to notice on the IAE engines on the Phoenix Block 2 that is just about to be released at the time of this recording, and probably about released already by the time you're watching this. In any case, I do hope that you found this video interesting. If you did, then be sure to let me know in the comments below, and be sure to leave a like, as it does help out the channel significantly in the YouTube algorithms. Finally, if you're up for more, don't forget to subscribe, and if you really like what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Until then, I would like to say thank you very much for watching, hope that you enjoyed this one, and I see you all again on the next one.